Hi, I'm Jack Davis, and welcome to another episode of The Zone. With me, our friend Jake Smith, former kicker from University of Arizona, all-around good guy, and Jonah Rosenbaum, Michigan fan. Kind of a tough time for you in sports, Jonah, but thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be back.
So our first topic today is the NBA. The season's in full swing. We're about 5 or 6 games in, and already problems for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Kevin Durant broke his foot before the year, out 6 to 8 weeks. And then the season's second game, Russell Westbrook, who kind of people thought this might be his chance to shine, breaks his hand. The Thunder, without their 2 top players, guys, could the Thunder miss the playoffs?
I mean, I think it's early to say that for sure. But look, if they drop to, excuse me, close to the bottom of the Western Conference, it's possible. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I think they're going to sneak into the playoffs and be a dangerous team due to the talent that they have. But it's possible that they miss the playoffs this year.
I think if they get to the playoffs, they will be dangerous. But if you just look at the numbers, you needed 49 wins just to sneak in last year. The bottom of the West is stronger. They're 1-4 right now. If they start 7-18, that's pretty conceivable. They'd have to go. I can't do that math, but they'd have to go really.
You really, like when you were starting, you thought you'd be able to knock out the math.
41-11. I think that might even be right.
That's not right. That's way off.
That's 40. You know what? They'd have to do some really impressive stuff in the second 2/3 of the season. I think it could be difficult.
See, for me, the Thunder are a perfect example of why when you have a chance to win a championship, you have to go for it. They never added great pieces around Durant and Westbrook. In fact, they trade Harden. At the end of the day, what did they get back for Harden? They got Steven Adams, Mitch McGary, 1 season of Kevin Martin and Jeremy Lamb. That's not anything really. And if you look at the supporting cast, isn't there. They don't. I mean, look, no team would really do well without their top 2 players. It's fair to say no team would do well with that. But I think this is shows that when you have a chance for a championship, you got to go for it because anything can happen.
I think their biggest problem was when they brought Perkins in. I don't think he fit the team mold. I still don't think he fits. And I think that's really what changed from that young mentality where they could run, be more athletic than people, and also be more skilled to trying to slow it down and things like that, where I just don't think that was the right move for the team. But I think they were trying to compete with the big boys per se, and that's why they brought him in. But it just was not, in my opinion, a smart move.
What we've seen from the Lakers, who are now, we'll talk about later, who are such disasters, it can all fall apart really quickly. And I think what has to scare Thunder fans, and I want to hear your take on this, Jonah, is if they miss the playoffs this year, it could have ramifications because Durant is in the last year of his contract next year. If they miss the playoffs this year and don't win the finals next year, maybe Durant leaves, and then it's just Westbrook, and then maybe he leaves. Do you think it could all fall apart for Oklahoma City?
I mean, I think if Durant leaves, Westbrook will leave, probably to LA, which would be nice. But you got to look at it as when you have a window, you take it. You don't let it go. And for one thing, that could have taken James Harden for another year, cost-free. The other thing is when you look at the way the cap is rising, this is just going to look worse and worse and worse. And this could be a team that Serge Ibaka is their franchise player in a couple of years.
And they're not going to be able to attract free agents. So it's your whole thing should be killing yourself to get pieces around 2 superstars in Durant and Westbrook so they stay. And what did they do this offseason? They brought in Anthony Morrow.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that the Oklahoma City has to look at is LeBron in Cleveland. LeBron left Cleveland the first time more or less because players didn't want to go to Cleveland. Now he's elevated his game to that point where players will do anything to play with him, go anywhere. The issue for Oklahoma City is neither Durant or Westbrook is from Oklahoma City or the surrounding area, so it's very hard for them to have that draw for either of those players. I mean, like Jonah just said, Russell Westbrook's probably going to go to Lakers in 2 years. Durant's probably going to go to the Wizards. They want that homecoming. They see what it's done for LeBron and LeBron's brand, and there's no reason why that's not going to happen for those 2 guys. I think it's going to go downhill and go downhill quick for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A team like Oklahoma City, it would be so hard for them to recover. I know they've had good drafts, and Sam Presti's done a good job in the draft, but hitting on Durant and Westbrook, that's luck to some degree. A lot of stuff has to happen. A lot of stuff has to fall right, and those are 2 generational players. And if they lose those guys, if they miss the playoffs this year, I think it'll all fall apart for them really quickly. Anyway, we're at the midpoint of the NFL season, and now, while we just started the NBA, midpoint of the NFL, the best teams are starting to take shape. We had a huge showdown this past week as the Patriots beat the Broncos. Great showdown in the NFC as the Arizona Cardinals, up to 7-1, took down the Dallas Cowboys to move to the #1 team in the NFC. Jake's hometown Philadelphia Eagles at 6-2. Guys, who's the best team in the NFL?
I think we all know that we're at the midpoint of the season. So I think it's very,
I just said that. That's
very,
true.
very tough to say who is absolutely the best team. I think if the Patriots play like they have the past 3 or 4 weeks since Gronk has been back and Brady's on the top of his game right now, I think he feels like he has something to prove. The defense played phenomenally against your Broncos. Sorry about it. Mm-hmm. But at that same token, I think the Broncos are actually a better team than the Patriots. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be in the mix come Super Bowl. I think they're that regular season team that has just kind of danced its way through. But, I mean, we'll see how Mark Sanchez plays for the Eagles. But if I had to say the best team, looking offense, defense, special teams, I really do think it's your Denver Broncos.
Well, thank you, even though I have nothing to do with that. I appreciate it. And imagine how great the Patriots would be if they didn't have one tight end who was a serial killer. It'd be just life-changing for them.
It would be pretty helpful for them in that offense to have Aaron Hernandez, yes.
Yeah, seriously, if he wasn't too busy killing people. Jonah, who do you think the best team in the NFL is?
I think it's either going to be Denver or New England, and I think it's going to be whoever plays that game at home in the playoffs. And I think right now it looks like New England's playing at home. New England's going to win.
Didn't like a lot of your predictions there. I mean, it's who's going to be at home is too early to say that. You know,
you think that tiebreaker
you think that Denver,
valuable.
Denver, New England are obviously the top 2 teams in the AFC right now. But do you really believe? And this is the thing about predictions, which makes it fun and difficult. Are the 2 best teams in November still going to be the 2 best teams in February?
Of course not, and it's hard to forecast. But the way the Patriots played and the way Tom Brady's playing the last 4 games is literally up there with the best we've ever seen him play. Brady can win in any situation. It can be snowing. It can be. His wide receivers can be just laughable. Manning needs a perfect conditions. He has so many weapons. I don't think he can win the playoffs on the road.
I think it's tough to say because I think Peyton is getting more and more comfortable in the cold weather, playing in Denver and things like that. I think it's kind of overhyped, his whole cold weather problems, as much as it showed last week. I think he was off his game. He even admitted himself that he had to play better. He did not play well enough to win that game. You never know what's going to happen with injuries and things like that. And I honestly think that the Eagles are going to still be in a great place, even with Mark Sanchez at quarterback, with the weapons that he has around him and with the offensive line getting healthy and all that kind of going on. It's all about being healthy.
The phrase "in a great place with Mark Sanchez," I don't agree with that phrase. Not a great phrase. As long as Sanchez is around, I think things are going to go downhill.
He took a Jets team to 2 conference championships with a lot less than what he's working with right now.
Those teams were all built around defense. I mean, I don't think Sanchez is a bad quarterback. But for me, I look at it as, you know, there's no dominant team so far this year. Last year, everyone knew the Seahawks were great. Everyone knew the 49ers were great. And last year's Bronco team got off to a really strong start. You always know the Patriots are like the Spurs. They're always going to be there. But there's no real dominant team in the NFL right now. That's part of the reason I wanted to ask the question is because, I mean, could this be a year where the Cardinals make a run to the Super Bowl? I mean, someone's going to come out of the NFC, and maybe it is the Seahawks again. And I personally think the Seahawks are still the best team in football because I think in a playoff atmosphere, they're still going to be tough to beat in a one-game type situation where, you know, everything's more concentrated. But what about that? We haven't really talked about the NFC. Cowboys? Is it the Cardinals? Is it the Eagles?
I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I think the Seahawks have really moved away from what made them so successful last year offensively. I think the defense is still there. Obviously, I mean, you have lockdown Richard Sherman, who, as much as people like to say he's not a lockdown corner, he is. He's the best corner in football, better than Revis, better than Hayden. He's the best corner in football. So when you have that kind of defense, you have Marshawn Lynch, who he could literally put his team on his back. And when you have a guy like that, it's tough to say that they're not the best team, but I do think the Eagles are all around a better team. The Eagles should have beaten the Cardinals on the road and just let up a fluke play to John Brown, who is a stud, by the way. And I'm not sold on the Cowboys either.
Any NFC team for you, John?
Not sold on the Cowboys, but I think quarterbacks and defense win the playoffs. So if it's Carson Palmer and Mark Sanchez that we're picking between,
that's not a great
prediction. I love the Cardinals defense. I think Allington's starting to come into his own. I think the Cardinals are going to come out of that.
Would you rather have Brandon Weeden or Tony Romo than those two guys in the playoffs?
I don't know if I'd rather have Brandon Weeden. I'll take Tony Romo. But
in the playoffs?
In the playoffs. I think that is an overblown thing.
I think this is all just setting up for Tony Romo to fail spectacularly. I think Tony Romo is just kind of like maybe like a ploy from the NFL to have a great storyline. Like he's like Charlie Brown almost. The ball is just gonna get pulled from him right before he kicks it every time.
Or
now he's kicking field goals. Yeah.
I really think though, and this is my prediction, one of those things where if, you know, hopefully I get it right. Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl Part 2. I really believe it. I still think the Seahawks are the best team in the NFL. I still think in a one-game situation they can match up with anyone else's. They can shut down your offense. They can pound the ball. I know they've had their struggles this year, but I think it's going to be Broncos Seahawks. And I think the Seahawks are going to win again. Seahawks back-to-back. I want to make more and more bold predictions, but I'm out of predictions to say.
I just don't feel like the Seahawks are the same team this year. They don't have that same level.
They're not. I'll take the Eagles, not just because I'm an Eagles fan, but I do think that they have the best shot right now. If you're looking at the NFC, I'll take the Eagles in the Super Bowl versus the Patriots because I just trust Tom Brady more than Peyton Manning.
Cardinals, Patriots, I'll take Tom Brady.
Wow. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a great second half of the NFL season, and either way, it looks like Peyton or Brady gets another crack at the Super Bowl. So on to our next segment, and this is actually a great transition. I didn't even plan for this. Who's better? Every week we're going to talk about, put two names out there, who's better. And we're going to start with who's better, Peyton or Tom?
I think Tom Brady's a guy that I'd rather have quarterbacking my team. Do I think he's necessarily as smart of a football mind as Peyton Manning? No, but he's a gamer. He's a football player. He's the guy that I would look to and be like, let's get it. I don't love Peyton's body language. I think he's kind of turned into a whiner, thinking that everybody has to be as perfect as he wants to be. But he's not that perfect anymore. If you watched that game last weekend, every throw was low or behind him by a step or this and that, and you can blame the receivers. Yes, some were catchable balls like the Welker, but that was still on his hip. It was still a little bit behind him, whereas 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, that ball is the only place that ball is where his receiver can get it, no one else, and in a perfect spot.
But his numbers are still better than they were 5 or 6 years ago.
I'm not a numbers guy. I'd rather, if you don't pass the eye test, then it doesn't matter to me.
So if there's one thing we've learned in the year 2014, it's the eye test is the single most accurate way to evaluate anything. So good point. Jonah.
It's amazing that about 6 weeks ago, ESPN and someone asked Bill Belichick in a press conference, is it time to reevaluate the quarterback position?
That is incredible.
5 weeks ago.
We talked about it on the show.
Talked about it on the show. I was not a part of it. Unbelievable.
Hopefully I didn't say anything about Tom Brady being done. Maybe I did.
You can use all the metrics you want, and you can look at weather, and Jake will argue that, but I don't get how you can. At the end of the day, the way I look at it is I just trust Tom Brady. When he's the quarterback, I think he's going to win the game. Peyton Manning, his numbers are just eye-popping, but he doesn't have that. You don't feel like, oh, he's the quarterback, he's got it.
As much as I mock your eye test, because you can't just go all eye test, I agree. I think there has been a bit of a too much reversion to everything statistical analysis. You have to look at it, who would you trust more? And Peyton's a great quarterback. Peyton is definitely one of the all-time greats. But Tom just gives you that confidence. He's got that swagger. He's like a movie hero. He's like great looking. He's dating a supermodel. He yells. He screams. He's pumped up.
They got married a few decades ago.
Wow, a long time ago. But I just trust Tom. And it's this kind of weird thing where here we are evaluating who's better, Peyton or Tom. We're all picking Tom. Last year, AFC Championship game, Peyton spanked him. How does that, how do you reconcile that with the fact that we're all picking Tom, with the fact that in the playoffs, 6 months ago, Peyton destroyed him?
I think that's where people get caught up in individuals over team in a team sport. You have to look at those teams, and those were completely different teams. They were completely outmatched. The Broncos were better in all phases, and it's not like it's a quarterback competition. It's not like you send them out there and they have to hit targets. It's a football game.
But Peyton would probably win in a target competition.
Probably. But that's what I'm saying. It's a football game. It's more than that. And when it comes down to a team game, you can't just say, oh, this quarterback spanked this quarterback. No, he spanked the other team's defense. So that's the way that I look at it. And I think that's what gets lost a lot of times.
But Peyton or Tom, you pick Tom?
Yes.
I'll pick Tom. And can I say one other thing with the statistical thing? I think the game has changed so much just in the last 5 years, and it's so tilted towards quarterbacks putting up numbers. You can't touch them almost anywhere. You can't check receivers after 5 yards, and that makes a big difference in putting up fantasy football numbers at 38.
Yeah, that's true, but at the end of the day, these are two amazing quarterbacks, and we're just lucky that we grew up getting to watch these guys because these are some of the best to ever do it. And the new age quarterbacks everyone gets so hyped about, Russell Wilson, Kaepernick, Luck, these are all great players. They're not going to touch these guys' numbers. They're not going to touch these guys' success.
Andrew Luck will.
I think Luck will.
I think Luck's the best quarterback in the league right now.
This is a whole other discussion, but either way, Peyton and Tom, two of the greats. But Tom, we all picked Tom. So now here's kind of depressing who's better because it's really who's worse. the 76ers or the Lakers. Currently, this Lakers 0-5 with a 14.8 point differential. For you at home who don't know, that means on average they're losing by 14.8 points per game. The Sixers 0-3 at 13.2 points a game. And I'm pretty sure the Sixers are just getting high school players from Philadelphia to suit up and wear jerseys. Like, I mean, I really think it. Who's better? So again, who's worse? Which of these teams? I mean, these are probably the two worst teams in the league, no?
They're probably the two worst teams in the league that are going in completely different directions. The Lakers are the worst team in the league because they play the worst basketball, and they're also just going downhill. It's only going to get worse before it gets better. The Sixers are on the way up. There's a plan. There's a reason to the losing. So if you're asking me who's better, I'm taking the Sixers as an organization right now over the Lakers. And that's crazy to say coming from an organizational standpoint, but there's a plan in place, and if you trust in the plan's going to work.
Yeah, because if you just come up with the plan and trust it, it works no matter what, 100%.
Look how it's going right now.
Yeah, it's going terrible. Jonah, who's better, 76ers or Lakers?
The picture of Sam Hinkie under his pillow, which is sad because the Lakers are beating Sam Hinkie at his own game. We are worse, which is better. We will have a higher pick, and I mean, look at that. Look at Boozer. How could you don't sign Carl
First of all,
Boozer with
look how bad that beard is. Like, who shapes that beard for him? Oh my Lord, Jake, you should give Boozer beard shaping lessons. You have a very well-shaped beard. Yeah. I went to the Laker game last night, and here's a great, sort of insight just from like an anecdotal perspective. We grew up going to Laker games. It was always like such a thing to do. Like beautiful women, really powerful LA like businessmen, Hollywood executives. You always felt like you were. Did you ever go to a Laker game?
I've never been to Staples Center.
Okay, well, we've got to change that. But going to Laker games when we were like, 16, 17, the Pau Gasol, Kobe Lakers, even the Shaq Kobe Lakers, it felt like you were like a real Hollywood thing. It felt like you felt so lucky and special to be there, like you were important for going. Last night was the first game I've gone to in 3 years. It just felt kind of down. Like no one's really excited to be there. The crowd doesn't have the same buzz. There's no celebrities there. There's no celebrity camera. It literally was like almost surreal because Laker games, it was about the event and the spectacle as much as it was about the game and the whole Hollywood atmosphere. And that's just gone. It's just gone. It's depressing. It's crazy.
I mean, I would love to see a celebrity cam at a Laker game tomorrow and just see who
you'd make the cam.
I might. That is my best chance
cam.
to get on that. But the thing is, you can't look at this and think that it wasn't a conscious decision because we could have gone after Isaiah Thomas. We could have gone after Lance Stevenson. I mean, we could have done things to make ourselves a competent team.
I agree, and that's when I say who's better. The 76ers are a better team. I think the 76ers actually have, just between Nerlens Noel and Michael Carter-Williams, have more talent on them than the Lakers do right now. So I think they're going to win more games, and they're in the East.
I think there's more talent than that there. I think there's a lot of talent that's going to be developed, like KJ McDaniels. He's going to be a defensive stopper, rebounder. There's a lot of talent there. Embiid next year, things like that. There's a significant growth potential with the Sixers, and that's more exciting to me than the Lakers going downhill.
Now that being said, you're wrong because the Lakers, since they're so bad, we're going to get our top 5 pick. We're going to get it. We're definitely going to be one of the worst 5 teams in the NBA. We have Houston's first-round pick. So next year, we're going to have Julius Randle coming back healthy. We're going to have a top 5 pick, an additional first-round pick, and cap space. That's 3 good picks, and LA is a market people will come to instead of Philly. So being able, and then in 2 years when Kobe's contract comes off the book, we're going to have 3 good young players and an empty cap.
And I understand that, I get that, but that's what I'm saying. It's going to get worse before it gets better for them, and that kind of goes back to the Oklahoma City thing.
There's more hope in Philly right now.
Exactly, and that kind of goes back to Oklahoma City. Like, what's keeping Durant and Westbrook there? It's right now is that they get to play together. They have a great team, but as soon as one of them leaves, they're gone. There's no draw there, and that's the difference between LA and Philly. Is Philly has to build through the draft the same way that the Spurs did, things like that. They have to build through the draft, so you have to trust the plan. The Lakers and their fans, like you two, are saying, look, somebody's going to come here. Someone. We don't know who, but someone. And I don't think it's going to be Durant because I
think it's going to be Westbrook.
Is that a star, though? Can you build? Is Westbrook someone you're going to win a championship with, being the main guy?
The classic Jonah, you don't win a guy with a championship player. He's not good enough to be your number 1 guy.
But we're going to have 3 assets. Like, Randall is going to come back. Randall,
But we don't know what we have with Randall.
We don't need him to be a star. If he's a 14-8 guy, that's a very valuable piece. That's what Lamar Odom was when he was the 3rd best player in our 2 championship teams. We're going to get a top 5 pick this year. This is a good draft class. And Houston's pick's going to fall between 20 and 30, and we're going to get that pick. So we're going to have some young assets. But this year for the Lakers is so depressing. I definitely think when we say who's better, I'd rather be a Sixers fan this year than a Lakers fan because you can watch Michael Carter-Williams, you can watch Nerlens. With the Lakers, I swear to God, Jonah, you are the laziest, shittiest defender in pickup basketball in the world, and I would rather have you than Boozer as a defender, legitimately. Boozer just gives layups.
Well, I'd rather have Boozer than you on offense, but I'm glad that I'm being inserted in for some D.
See, we need to do a who's worse, Boozer on defense or Harden on defense, because it's actually funny to watch them both.
Because Harden, you just feel like he's lazy. Boozer,
it just apologizes before the play's over.
Yeah.
He got by me.
That's what you do on the pickup court.
Have you? We've played one-on-one. I don't know how many times, and you've never beaten me.
That's such a lie. We're not going to go too far with this, but after we finish filming this, we'll go to a court. There's a court right over here.
4, but I'd be happy to play you tomorrow.
This is what we're doing tonight instead of the comedy show. You're reffing me and Jonah's one game.
I'm going to the comedy show tomorrow morning.
But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a better year for 76ers. They're a better team, but we'll see where the future goes. I think these teams are in equal position for the future because Lakers can get some free agents, but Philly obviously does have more overall assets at the moment.
Plus picks.
Plus picks. Well, that's an asset. You agree?
Good picks. Yeah, it'll be a better time to be a Philly fan right now.
So our next segment, good call, bad call. Is something happening in the world of sports a good call or a bad call? Today, Adrian Peterson reached a plea agreement in his child abuse case, pleading no contest, and this could allow him to apply for reinstatement to the NFL, and his Minnesota Viking teammates said they would welcome Adrian with open arms. Guys, good call or bad call, Adrian Peterson coming back to play this year?
I think it's a bad call. I don't think you need to do it this year. I'm not in the camp that says Adrian Peterson never play football again. I'm not in the camp that even says that the Vikings need to cut him or trade him. But what do you stand to gain by bringing him back this year? From a controversy standpoint, really, what are you going to gain? You're not going to make the playoffs. Why do it?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Adrian Peterson because I think the Vikings as a franchise probably should move on from Adrian Peterson. I don't think he has a ton of years left as a running back. He's already taken a ton of hits. That said, I really think he is going to get reinstated. I think he should be reinstated, and I think a team like the Patriots is going to take a shot with him, or even Ray Rice when he gets reinstated. I think the Patriots are the team that are.
They're going to bring Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson.
I honestly think that the Patriots are going to bring in one of those two players. I don't know what's going to happen with Adrian Peterson because the Vikings obviously have his rights. But Ray Rice is going to be a free agent when he gets reinstated, and I really think that a team like the Patriots, number one, could benefit from him, number two, could handle the media that would come with it.
You could take over there in Hernandez role, just slide right in.
So I actually hope that the Broncos get Adrian Peterson. I know it's almost impossible to get him this year because he has to be cut by the Vikings, which isn't out of the question. But I'm in the camp, and we're using the word camp here, of Adrian Peterson should be allowed to play in the NFL again. You know what I mean? The legal part is going to be handled. It's a very murky issue. You know, I understand both sides. I don't really take a stance on it, but I think he should be allowed to play in the NFL when he returns. I think Ray Rice should be allowed to be reinstated. The question is, will teams re-sign Ray Rice, which is what you think. I think Peterson will be back, and teams would want to re-sign him because he's been more prolific than Ray Rice, and his career still seems to have more in the tank. But I guess the thing is, I would say it's a bad call to bring Adrian back this year because of the firestorm. But this brings up a great question, which we can talk about now, which is what's going to happen to these guys' careers?
I personally don't think that the media firestorm, as you said, will be that bad around Adrian Peterson. I think it will be around Ray Rice. Now, if there were a video of Adrian Peterson, people would be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
But there's not, So it's like he was disciplining his child. Now, do I agree with that? We talked about this on the show too. No, but at the same time, that's how he was raised.
But at least for Adrian, I feel like they can paint it as more of like a cultural and race thing, which is like, it's a cultural thing. It happens in the South and in the Southeast. And it also is painted, sometimes as a race thing, which is this is a different, way of raising a child that is a cultural and that, we shouldn't be able to judge it. Now, you might not agree with those, but you can at least paint those arguments. Where for Ray Rice, it's kind of tough to paint any defensive argument.
Yeah, and there's also, it's about talent at the end of the day. And Ray Rice, is he worth what's going to come with that? And I don't know if the answer is yes at this point.
Ray Rice has less talent and comes with far more baggage and anti.
From what we know.
Yeah. But Jake, you're, an NFL agent in training. I don't know if I can say that. You're an NFL guy. You played sports. You know football players. What do you think the locker room reception would be like to Adrian, and what do you think it would be like for Ray?
I think they would be the same, honestly. I think if either of them walk into a locker room and you know that either of them will help your team win, and from all accounts, guys like both of them, they're good locker room guys. Now, do like off the field issues are off the field issues. You have a guy in the locker room. Everybody said Aaron Hernandez was a good guy in the locker room too. But that doesn't mean he's a good person. But as a teammate, you're going to support your teammates. I'm sure that the Vikings would love to have him back because they know that they'd be having a more successful year. And in addition, guys don't care. To be completely honest with you, they don't. And half these guys have done worse stuff than that.
What do you mean when you say they don't care? Because a lot of NFL players came out with tweets against Ray Rice when the video dropped. Adrian, the social media response was pretty supportive. So what do you mean when you say they don't care? You think people don't care that Ray Rice, on video, beat the shit out of his wife?
They care to the extent that they know that it's wrong, as we all do. Like, you do not put your hands on a woman, ever, no matter what the circumstance. But they don't care if it's a guy that's going to help the team win. They don't care. Dante Stallworth was embraced in locker rooms. He killed a guy. Like, Ray Lewis, whether he did or didn't do it, still is arguably the most popular player, definitely in Ravens history, but one of the most popular players around the league. So guys don't. When I say guys don't care, I mean they don't care.
You mean it. You mean what you say.
I don't pretend to have any of the insight on that as Jake.
But as a fan, you're a fan.
As a fan, I would hope that they would care. Adrian Peterson, I think, is a lot more of a complex issue, and I don't know. I just don't know on that. But Ray Rice, I don't think that he should be welcomed back into a locker room.
Interesting choice. I mean, it's funny because I think with the Ray Rice situation, I don't think Ray Rice will ever play in the NFL again because I think it's too hot to touch and his skills are declining. But I think you will see Adrian Peterson back at the first opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to our last segment now, our favorite segment of the week, the call-out of the week. All people do in sports is dumb shit. We're here to call them out, get on our moral high horse, hopefully make some jokes. Jonah, who is your call-out of the week?
I want to call out my beloved Los Angeles Dodgers and new president, Andrew Friedman, who I'm very excited to see what he can do with the team. But his first big move was kind of pushed upon him when Joe Madden got out of his contract with Tampa Bay. Don Mattingly, perfectly competent manager, but when you spend upwards of $250 million on your payroll, why would you not invest in the best manager you can have? And I think people are very risk adverse when it comes to firing someone who hasn't made it very clear that they need to be fired. But this was a chance to get a manager who, how many managers are like this, are this elite? And this was one of the chances that I think he just let go by.
And the Dodgers really haven't made any bold moves. No. They made bold moves 2 years ago in the Hanley Ramirez trade and the Gonzalez trade, but since then they've more or less stood pat and they haven't been able to get over the hump.
Yeah, and that's also a bold move in terms of money, which when you have owners as deep-pocketed as these is easier to do than letting someone go who hasn't made that abundantly clear that they need to go.
So your call out of the week, Andrew Friedman, you think he's got to do a little more to get the Dodgers contenders?
I think so.
Jake?
See, my call out of the week, obviously you could call out the NCAA, you could call out just about anybody in sports right now for a variety of reasons. Mine necessarily isn't a sports figure. It's Artie Lang, who you may or may not like him. He tries
not a flattering picture.
But that's actually what he looks like. He tries to be funny. And this morning when he was watching First Take, he made some very, very interesting comments on Twitter about the host, Carly Champion. Basically, Artie Lang is deciding that he wants to have a sexual fantasy where he is Thomas Jefferson and gets beat by a slave. So basically, as you can see, here's a scenario I'm using to jerk off to. He means the chick on First Take. I'm Thomas Jefferson, and she's my slave. She beats the shit out of me and runs free. First off, what in the actual fuck are you talking about? That is just the most absurd, obscene thing I think I've ever heard. And he goes on to say even more stuff about having 8 illegitimate children, trying to beat her and things like that. And then my favorite part of it, though, was as reparations, he would say that he talked about Skip Bayless. But what were you thinking when you were tweeting this? Like what made you do that?
About his non-apology afterwards, too.
Yeah, I don't think there's any coming back from that. I don't think there's any apologizing for it. But at the same time, he probably got he probably accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. We're talking about him. People are talking about him. He's all over the internet today and things like that. And that probably hasn't been for 10 years that people have actually talked about him, whether it's positive or negative. And you can shed more light on it when it comes to the Hollywood types. But is any publicity good publicity? Because he's actually getting some today.
Yeah, when you're a fat, probably alcoholic, overweight, out of work comedian, like being Twitter trending is like a pretty good look. You know what I mean? Like you can maybe get some like special on some shitty network from this. But for me, it's like any claim that you make that you meant that in comedy, like this is like reverse Django in some weird way. Like really offensive, shitty Artie Lang does Django. Like one of the worst things ever. And here's my thing: I don't mind if a comedian's going to be offensive and try and take a stance, but how fucked up is it for this poor ESPN anchor? You know what I mean? She's out there doing her job, and this is I feel like going to hurt her. Because at the end of the day now, I had no idea who she was before this, and now if I turn on First Take, I'm going to associate her with Artie Lang and illegitimate children and Thomas Jefferson and a lot of shit.
It really is unfortunate for her because she actually does a really good job. I think she's very, very good on the show, and I don't think it's easy to moderate between Stephen A. and Skip Bayless, as ridiculous as they both are. They're both shocking in their own ways. Stephen A. has a lot of friends, a lot of dear friends. And she does a really good job, and you're absolutely right. Every time that people are going to look at her, watch the show, people are going to have that association.
Let me ask: has there ever been a sports show in history that has generated more controversy than First Take? We had the Richard Sherman debacle. We had Stephen A. Smith saying that women shouldn't provoke men after the Ray Rice situation. A lot of shit coming out of First Take.
First Take, but they accomplish what they want to accomplish. They get people talking, and whoever produces that show must be very happy, whether it's today and you have some random person who people cared about 15 years ago.
The producer's just hitting up old out-of-work comedians being like, say something offensive.
But seriously, people are talking about him. You're absolutely right. No show creates a controversy that First Take does in the sports world.
Any thoughts, Jonah?
I mean, when you can pull off a Thomas Jefferson sexual fantasy tweet, you got to sort of tip your hat. Just not in this situation.
Not in this situation. This is the rare time where a Thomas Jefferson slave sexual fantasy tweet is no bueno.
No good.
Well, my call out of the week is the one and only Alex Rodriguez. Last week I called out Jose Canseco for shooting off his fingers, saying I believed he was faking it because the man is just an attention whore who will do anything to remain in the spotlight, and that I think I said he was the biggest attention whore we had in sports. I was wrong. I forgot about Alex Rodriguez. It comes out this week that Alex finally has admitted to taking performance-enhancing drugs, something we all knew, and that he paid his cousin, Yuri Sukart, $1 million to keep quiet that he had done performance-enhancing drugs, which is kind of funny because the whole world had known it. And he's paying this one guy $1 million to keep his mouth shut. But Alex Rodriguez, please don't come back to baseball. You are the absolute worst. I actually don't mind the rumor that you have a painting of yourself as a Minotaur in your house. I think it's kind of badass. I might do that myself one day. But go home, A-Rod. Don't come back to the Yankees. Just bow out. Your baseball career is over. You have no PR image. You are the perfect example of an athlete who tries too hard to handle his PR, and then it just backfires on him. I want to hear what you guys have to say, but I could not hate a baseball player more than Alex Rodriguez.
Well, if he gets the world a Minotaur Jack Davis painting, he's done us all a favor. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be that relevant. He wasn't the same hitter before. He's not going to be after. I think it'll be interesting. It'll give us another thing to watch.
So I actually saw A-Rod at the gym a couple weeks ago. He looks terrible. He looks like a guy that was on a whole lot of steroids and then his body just can't react afterwards. And as we can now know for sure, that's exactly right. I think A-Rod will come back to baseball. I think he's an idiot for coming back to baseball, for even trying to, because all he had to do was say he had a hip injury, would have gotten his entire contract plus insurance, and never had to worry about any of the PED stuff, anything like that. All he had to do was retire and say he was injured. He wants to come back. Excuse me. Now he's paying the price.
So when you say he looked terrible at the gym, we're gonna need some more details. We're gonna need was he looked ugly, like his outfit was bad, like he looks weak, like he's benching like me and Jonah. Like I need a little more like insight.
So he definitely had some man boobs going.
Wow.
He was definitely out of shape, kind of fat. And it's gonna be interesting to see how he can perform this year. Because he's not the same athlete, and he was the type of guy.
There's one sport where the man boobs out of shape thing may work for you, though. Golf. If he's in the right baseball, it's not so bad.
If we can remember Mo Vaughn, I think the man boobs can work.
So you're predicting a bad year for A-Rod?
I still think he's an unbelievable talent. I think he'll be serviceable, but I don't think he's going to be the same player.
And to me, A-Rod's the greatest example of he is an unbelievable talent. He didn't have to do steroids. Maybe he wouldn't have hit 700 career home runs. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten a 10-year, $250 million deal. But he would have been a great player no matter what. And someone who cares so much about their legacy and crafting their public image, actually, the more you try and grab onto it, the more you destroy it. Anyway, I could talk about A-Rod forever and how much I hate him and Minotaur paintings of myself, but we're going to end it here. Jonah, thank you for coming back on the show. Jake, a pleasure as always. Everyone, thank you for watching The Zone on the Lip TV. Make sure to comment, tweet at us, tweet at Jake, tweet at Jonah, tweet at me. Make sure to subscribe to the Lip TV if you're watching this on YouTube, and hop over to LTV2 and subscribe there. But really go to the Lip website, thelip.tv, see full-length episodes of The Zone, see short-form highlights of The Zone, and more of the amazing programs from The Lip. Follow The Lip on Twitter, @TheLipTV, and on Facebook, facebook.com/TheLipTV.